You know, I come on here every day and I point out the fact that people on the left, by and large, are, well, a collective group of, well, dumb asses. But then again, we got a few on the right too. And occasionally, the right has its own whack jobs we have to deal with. So if we're going to talk about when the left gets woke, we need to talk about when the right is wrong.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha. To the funny farm where life is beautiful all the time. And I'll be happy to see those nice young men in their clean white coats. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha.
Before I give you my assessment of Alex Jones, let me lay down just a little bit of background and history of me. I grew up in a conservative home. I remember the night Ronald Reagan won re-election. I was in college. I can tell you that my father was euphoric. We were from New York. It was the first time a Republican presidential candidate had carried New York in some time. In fact, it has not been done since Ronald Reagan ran the table that night against Walter Mondale, who I think only won his own home state, which was pretty good because even Al Gore didn't win Tennessee when he ran against George Bush. You know, losing your home state is like when your mom won't sign a job recommendation for you. It's not a good thing. So I grew up in your typical conservative home. I have been in the ministry over 30 years. Yes, I am that right-wing conservative Christian group, that evangelical bloc. And I got involved with talk radio in the mid-2000s when I was living in the state of Florida. And I pretty much did the typical stock and trade type of conservative politics. And one day, my station owner basically said, you know, conservative radio, by and large, is nothing more than controlled opposition. And I said, explain. He said, well, it's the same about Fox News. He said, it's controlled opposition. He said, it's all still part of the same mass media. It's all part of mainstream media. There's only 6 major communications corporations that own all of the media outlets of what we see and what we hear. And he said, even the conservatives that start out with good ideals and great ideas, over time, they get hooked by that paycheck, they get hooked by that money, and then they do exactly what the corporate bosses tell them. And Fox News, owned by the Murdoch family, is no different than CNN or PMSNBC, other than they've got talking points to placate to a, quote, conservative audience, because for them, it's not about conviction, it's about advertising dollars. And this was my first enlightenment into that, and talking to my radio station owner at WPGS Radio. He had for years been the producer of a talk show long before the days of Rush Limbaugh, a guy by the name of Chuck Harder. And I began to look at news stories from a little bit different lens and perspective, and began to see the story behind the story. And the fact that not everyone on the left was wrong about everything. In fact, in a lot of ways, they were right about the military-industrial complex, and not only in what that meant for Vietnam, but what it meant with this endless war in the Middle East. And so he and I began to have these conversations, and I began to talk to patriots, and I began to interview different politicians, and you began to tell which ones were regurgitating talking points, and you knew if they got elected, they were just going to go to Washington and do what everybody else did. And then you would meet these guys that you thought, these guys either actually get it, or these guys at least are the real deal. Whether I agreed with all of them or not, they were the real deal. I knew immediately that Mitt Romney was a fraud. I got excoriated by those in the conservative media for not carrying water for him. And as soon as the election was over, I went after him tooth and nail, and I went after the obvious shift at Fox News when Hannity got bumped to 10 and in came Megyn Kelly at 9. And for the most part, I'm really not into Fox News other than Tucker Carlson, five-line Hannity, just says the same five things over and over. For the most part, Hannity's a good guy, believes the right stuff, but only he will take a story so far because he addicted to that money. And Laura Ingraham, I like Laura. She's got some good stuff. And, she was one of the first ones to really be adamant against mask mandates and vaccine passports, and kudos to her. And she tried to ask Mike Pence the hard questions. Her problem is not so much the corporate money as it is she comes from the traditional Republican, and even though she looks at some of that now and says, look, these guys like Mitt Romney, they had no answer for the economy. Why don't they get behind Donald Trump? Even though she gets it now that Donald Trump had the right ideas, was moving the country in the right direction, and that the old guard way of doing things was all about patting people on the head, placating, and then doing what they were going to do anyway, she still follows some of those rules like wait your turn and, just assume that the Republican, the conservative is going to do the right thing. So, but there are guys on during the day. Neil Cavuto, are you kidding me? The fact that they still roll out Juan Williams. The Five sucks. I can't stand that show. I really can't. Jesse Waters, I think, is a conservative, but, he's such a goofball and an entertainer, and Gut Check is just wrenchingly awful. There's nothing remotely funny about Greg Gutfeld or whatever his name is. Sorry, Jimmy Dore is 100 times funnier than Gut Check. So, all of that. And I remember when I first discovered Alex Jones and I was listening to some of his stuff, and again, my station owner came to me and said, I know Alex Jones personally, and he is a fraud. Okay, all you Alex Jones people just freaked when I said that. Stay tuned. If you're truly a lover of truth, we love truth, we love truth! Okay, shut up and listen to some. Alex Jones is a fraud. He's a grifter and an opportunist. Kyle Kulinski over at Secular Talk, after the death of Rush Limbaugh, discovered an old 60 Minutes interview, and he had that as proof positive that Rush didn't really believe the things that he was on the air for years saying, because Rush said in that interview that he did it for the money and for the entertainment value. Rush was not saying in that interview, and I've seen that 60 Minutes interview multiple times, Rush was not saying in that interview that the beliefs that he was spouting were not his own personally held convictions. He was only saying them because there was a paycheck in it. That was not what he was saying. Rush was a true capitalist. Rush had some very strong convictions and beliefs, and he had them at his very core. But what he was saying is, I'm not going to come on the air every day and do what I do, because there is literally hundreds of hours of prep that has to go into all of this. And I can tell you, as a staff of one, I know what's involved. What he's saying is, I'm not going to do that for free. I'm going to earn a living doing this. And he did say, though, he understood the value in it, not just seemingly coming on like who was the big conservative that everybody loved? William F. Buckley. William F. Buckley, brilliant conservative. Talked over 90% of the people he was talking to, talked over their heads, talked over the heads of their audiences. The same with Thomas Sowell, an incredible intellectual conservative. Love guys like that. Love those guys. Love to listen to them. But Rush understood when it came to mass media, if we were going to start winning back the hearts and minds we had lost, in particular to the left, to the Democrats, they're the fact that they owned Hollywood and they owned the media and communication, the only way we were going to be able to do it was two ways. Number one, the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and to make it entertaining. The same as when you give kids medicine, sometimes you have to, as the old Mary Poppins song goes, you have to put a little sugar so that the medicine goes down. And that was what Rush was talking about. He wasn't talking about being a fraud or a phony or disingenuous. Rush was anything but. But Alex Jones is a fraud. Alex Jones is disingenuous. He rode the Roger Stone coattails because that got him close to Donald Trump. Donald Trump would never have given Alex Jones the time of day. Donald Trump had, in the beginning of his campaign, all of the regular media outlets wanted to interview him and had him on a lot, including Mr. Magoo, Joe Scarborough. CNN had him on. Faux Pas News, formerly known as Fox News, had him on all the time. He had Hannity. He had all the big guns. Now, Glenn Beck was anti-Trump in the day. And I'm sorry, Glenn, you'll never get off my list. I know you shill for Trump now, but you'll never get off my list. You, right after Trump got elected, you went on the Samantha Bee show and embarrassed yourself and talked about, Donald Trump was the end of America, and you were doing this crying apology tour. You're another grifter and a fraud. I have zero respect for Glenn Crybaby Beck. Ann Coulter, same thing. Sellout. She is a, can't say the word because it's family friendly. She does this for a paycheck. It sells books. She dates a lot of creeps on the left. In fact, it's been kind of the worst kept secret that she dated Bill Maher for quite a while. Ann Coulter says what she says because she's got an audience and she gets a paycheck from it. She's a grifter. She is disingenuous. And then there's a couple other right-wing nuts out there like James David Manning, who sold out. He was in all kinds of hot water, going to lose his church in Harlem because he went hot and heavy after Barack Obama. He was on board with Team Trump, and then all of a sudden, all these lawsuits are hitting him, and so he comes out anti-Trump, and poof, the lawsuits go away, and all of a sudden he's got all kinds of money to rehab his Harlem church. How'd that happen, James David Manning? Now, I used to interview David Manning. I was on his show. He was on my show. Got him on a radio station, then he stiffed him for thousands of dollars in airtime. And then Reverend Steven Anderson out of Tempe, Arizona, he's just flat nuts. He is insane. And he gives anyone that's a conservative Christian a bad name.
And he's talking to his nose, whiny little Ben Shapiro.
Talks down to everybody, acts like he's smarter than everybody else, when in truth, he is part of the establishment. He's got all kinds of sweetheart deals with the social media platforms. He will never get censored or removed. He's a sellout. He doesn't mind if I get taken off. He doesn't mind if others get taken off, but Ben Shapiro, will never get taken off. I just a little turncoat, little wannabe. So Alex Jones would have been an insignificant nothing had Donald Trump not begun to do some interviews with him. And of course, right away, Alex Jones wants to take credit. His court convictions are because of me. Bullhawk. It was Alex Jones who, on his website, was saying, we gotta go fight for Trump. The whole January 6th thing, I'm not going to get into all of that, because Alex Jones was there. He did have his little bullhorn, because he didn't go anywhere without his bullhorn, and he was telling people, calm down, because I think he saw the writing on the wall. And post all of that, well, he was the first major player to get removed from social media platforms, but he's a lunatic. I mean, he was asking Piers Morgan on CNN long before Donald Trump threw his hat in the ring to run for the presidency, asking Piers Morgan on CNN, you want to suck on my machine gun? Talking about 1776 will commence again if you're trying to take my guns. I mean, he's an alcoholic. To me, he looks like some kind of drug addict. And so, because he's under all kinds of FBI investigation following what happened on January 6th, he's trying to recraft his image, that he's not a Trump guy, that Trump was bad for America, and he swallowed the Kool-Aid, and in an interview he said, I wish I'd never met Trump, I wish I'd never met Roger Stone, when in reality they made him. But this was a little leaked video clip that came out, I believe, in early March. Tell me that Alex Jones isn't drunk here.
I'm just going to say it, that I wish I never would have fucking met Trump. I wish it never would have happened. And it's not that the attacks that I've been through. I'm so sick of fucking Donald Trump, man. God, I'm fucking sick of him. And I'm not doing this because it's like I'm kissing his fucking ass, you know? It's just like I'm sick of it.
Well, just recently, Donald Trump held a rally in Alabama, and at the rally, during one of his great speeches, and he had the crowd with him the whole time, Newsweek couldn't wait to report crowd booed him over vaccine. Some people in the crowd, we understand that there is a group of people that come hell or high water, no matter what, they're not going to get vaccinated. I will not tell you which camp I am in because, after all, I tend to get in trouble. And I'm not saying anything one way or the other about that. There are people who feel that way. Alex Jones decided to go after Trump on that point. Now, Trump made, he said, hey, I've been vaccinated. And a few people went, and Trump was like, hey, it's okay. If you don't want to get it, don't. That was what Trump said. He said, if there's any bad side effects, I'll be the first to know and I'll let you know. And then he moved on. And Alex Jones is acting like Donald Trump has committed some type of treason against the movement. Alex, where were you during Warp Speed? That it was Donald Trump's administration that got the vaccines to the forefront and on the market years ahead of what we were told could happen. And again, whatever your conviction on that, I believe in a free America. And that was what Donald Trump was talking about. And then Alex Jones took to the airwaves to say this.
BS. Trump, that's a lie. You're not stupid. Just 2 weeks ago, they said it was 65%, then 40%. Saw a number put up about Pfizer shots, 30-something%. Because they just want to tell you it doesn't work, so you run it with the new damn shot. And then they'll tell you in 6 months that one doesn't work. It's called rope-a-dope. Shame on you, Trump. Seriously. Hey, if you don't have the good sense to save yourself and your political career, that's okay. At least you're going to get some good Republicans elected. And, we like you. But my God, maybe you're not that bright. Maybe Trump's actually a dumbass.
Now, immediately, there were some on the left who were like, well, I hate Alex Jones, but it's obvious he's got some principles. They said that over at Breaking Points. Sager and Jetty and Crystal Ball, you know what? I watch your stuff every day. I don't agree with all of it because it's coming from a leftist slant, but I do watch them every day. And Sager and Crystal were both like, well, at least he's got his principles. What principles? Well, he said from the beginning he's been anti-vax, and now he's calling Donald Trump out on it. First of all, I don't take medical advice from people like Alex Jones. By the way, you do know how he makes a lot of his money, because it isn't like regular sponsors and advertisers advertise on his show. They don't want to be associated with it. You're not going to see McDonald's or Subway or, you're not going to see any of that advertised on his show. All of the products that advertise on his show, Alex owns them. He's hawking his own stuff. And a lot of the stuff that he hawks on his show are non-medicinal alternative ways to feel better. Vitamin this and booster that and blah, 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 blah. So let me get this straight. A guy who sells things that have never even been looked at by the scientific community for a peer review is now going to lecture us on this. And again, I'm trying to get you to understand Alex Jones is what he is. He is a grifter. He stumbled onto the whole conspiracy people out there. He found out that there was an audience there. There was money to be made there. And I would say that most of what comes out of Alex Jones's mouth, I don't know that he necessarily himself actually believes it. He's doing it because he's made millions doing it. Millions. And the only reason he's really upset with Donald Trump is Alex Jones, opened his big mouth, said more than he should have said, is scared that maybe what he said could be interpreted as ginning up a crowd. And so now he wants to be on the record and have audio and video of him distancing himself from Donald Trump in the hopes that it saves his backside. And I'm sorry. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is who he is. He has not changed. And I would have thought that warp speed would have kind of solidified with even the most ardent anti-love potion number 9 people that President Trump was not in that camp. But he was not in the mandate camp either. He just said, here it is. And for Alex Jones now to disingenuously, he's just a dumbass. Really? Really? Because the only dumbass I'm staring at, Alex, is you. You're over. You're a has-been. And you're trying to do anything to stay relevant in the headlines. A grifter to the end. To you Alex Jonesites watching this, don't be had. You're too smart for that. Wow, it's been a long time since I referenced Ann in Heat Coulter. That was my little nickname for her back in the day when she turned on Donald Trump. Anyway, hey, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. Smack the bell, click the word all to get notification of my next rant, and check out my hot topics, the stuff I can't deal with here.